welcome back to my channel. Glad to have you here. And today we're going to be discussing tips and tricks on how to enjoy every single reading experience you have. I'm talking every single time you pick up a book or a comic, or you read something online, or you listen to an audiobook. You really get immersed in the story and you are able to fully enjoy yourself instead of feeling drained or like tired of reading, like I feel like a lot of people feel like whenever they pick up a book. Tip number one, and the most obvious of them all, is to read genres that you enjoy. Don't force yourself to read a book if you're not interested in the topic, or read a book because you feel like it's trending and you're just like, oh, this is trending. If everyone else likes it, I'll probably like it. That being said, also don't be afraid to like stop reading a book if you dislike it. No one's forcing you to finish it. If that book is like keeping you from your reading goals, it's preventing you from being able to read books that you might have enjoyed, it's better to just quit it and leave it behind than to be stuck on it and then just not read at all. That being said, I do encourage exploration of different genres, which I'll talk about a little right after this. But like, it's just that if you find something that you really enjoy, why not stick to it, especially when you're really tired and you're finding it quite hard to read or you're in a reading rut. It's best to read genres that are tried and tested and you really enjoy. Secondly, is to switch between different books. Now, I feel like a lot of people are under the impression that if you start a book, you need to finish that book first before you can move on to the next one. And whilst I do understand that sentiment, I really do think it's best that you vary the books you're reading at the same time. For example, when you watch TV shows, it's not like you put on, like, for example, Young Sheldon, and you have to binge watch that entire series before you can watch anything else. The likelihood is you're watching Young Sheldon along with The Office, or like The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, or Borders, or other TV shows. You don't just stick to one TV show and just refuse to watch anything else for the duration of that TV show. It's the same with reading. If you're reading a book, it's okay to like switch to a different book. I often find that I'll start reading a book and sometimes I'll get slightly bored of it, or maybe the plot will slow down, or maybe I'm just tired of the writing style. And so I'll switch to a book. Typically, I switch from fiction to non-fiction when I do stuff like this in order to get a different feel, to get myself back into reading. And then once I either finish the other book I started, or once I get bored of that book, I return to the other book. Of course, I understand that like sometimes it can be hard to keep up with more than one book. I personally don't go beyond three, but I do think it's a good idea if you are struggling to like read, if you're really struggling to like enjoy reading, it might just be because you're bored of the book you're reading. Not necessarily that you dislike it to the point that you want to quit it, but you're just bored. And therefore I would suggest like reading another book at the same time in order to like keep your interest peaked. Third tip for you guys to enjoy every single reading experience you have is to engage with other people whilst reading. This can be like reading with a friend, or you could join a book club. Or if you can't meet anyone in person, there are tons of online communities where you can discuss books. Or even if you don't want to discuss with someone explicitly, you can be like a passive part of that community and read different comments about that book. I love after I read webtoon chapters just scrolling through the comments. They're so funny, and I also like to just see what people thought of the chapter, what people think of the story. And I think that can really add to your reading experience because for one, you get to verbalize your thoughts if you're actively speaking to someone or messaging someone about it. And two, it's just nice to hear different perspectives on the same book. This goes back to my earlier point about maybe being a bit bored. If you're talking about someone who views the book you're reading completely differently, it can encourage you to look at it at a different angle that will really help you, like, again, pique your interest, get back into that book with a fresh new perspective. Next is creating a space that is conducive to reading. Now, this can vary person to person or even by situation to situation. Obviously, there are some times where you're going to be reading and you're not really going to be able to control the environment you're in. For example, when you're commuting and reading, you can't control how much people talk or the noise around you. But what you can do is try and minimize the effect that your surroundings have on you, and when you are in a space that you can control, curating that space for your to optimize your reading experience. For example, for me personally, let's say I'm in public, what is really useful for me is to put on my headset and to listen to like Studio Ghibli music in order to put me in the zone so that I can focus on my reading instead of like what's going on around me. I also like that when I'm at home, I like to cozy up on the sofa. I like to make some tea to drink with my reading. And in general, when I'm at home, I also prefer like silence. This can be kind of difficult if you're living with other people, which again goes back to the idea of like putting on really soothing music that can get you back into the zone. But it's really up to you. Some people, the surroundings don't affect them at all, in which case you can ignore this point. But I feel like for a lot of people, it can be really difficult to read when there's a tons of distractions and like noise around you, and that can make reading more difficult and tiresome. And so before you read, I would try and think about ways in which you can optimize your space in order to maximize the enjoyment you get from your reading experience. And then my last tip for you guys in order to enjoy every single reading experience that you ever have is to stop viewing reading as part of a larger plan. Start reading for just the fun of it and start reading in the moment. So what do I mean by this? What I mean by this is that I feel like a lot of people try and get into reading in order to sort of like to achieve a greater goal essentially. So, like for example, maybe you're trying to get into reading because you want to be able to talk more sophisticatedly, or maybe you want to like broaden your knowledge on a certain topic, or maybe you've just heard about all the benefits that come with reading, such as like for example better sleep if you read before you go to bed, etc., and you want to take advantage those full advantages of reading. However, whilst these are all like admirable ambitions, I do feel as if you start thinking of reading as something as sort of like a self-help instead of something that you enjoy to do, it every time you sit down to open a book and read, it's gonna feel like another chore, something weighing you down. You start seeing reading as like your lack of reading as a flaw in your character, and that's never a good thing. It will prevent you from wanting to read a book, and it will also like sort of wait suck out the joy out of it, because every single time that you don't read, you're gonna feel like you're just sort of a failure of a person. And so I would suggest when it comes to reading, read when you feel like it, read when you want to, read when you're interested in a story. Don't force yourself to read for the sake of it. That's what I would suggest to anyone who's new to reading. If you want to learn more about how to get back into reading, I actually have a video on it which I uploaded a few weeks ago, but it's just something I just feel like when it comes to reading, it's best to explore reading as a hobby instead of just a goal. And I think that will truly maximize the enjoyment that you get out of reading every time you sit down to open a book. And those are all my tips to help you guys fully enjoy and become immersed in every single reading experience you have. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. I can't lie, I also created it for myself because I feel like, I don't know, it's not that I've not been wanting to read. It's just like a lot of the time when I've been picking up a book recently, it feels so draining, and I hate that feeling. I hate going through that sort of rut. So one of the things I did recently was like look back on like times where I've previously been in that situation where I just hadn't been experiencing that sort of joy that I usually would from picking up a book and reading, and that's how I came up with this video. So I really hope, I mean, I know this certainly helped me, but I hope this helped you guys. Comment below if you have any more tips, like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.